Welcome to the Rainy Street podcast. This is part 2 of New Cowboy on the Block. So we're picking up at the point where it's the day after the party. So we zoom in on Hank and the Alley Boys meeting before work.
Yeah.
Super impressive that they're able to get up early enough that they have time to hang out before work and start their day with one another. And we just see Hank, like, arms crossed, foot kicked out, super cocky, having met Roger Staubach's pool cleaner.
Yeah.
And the boys are just, like, dismayed. They're so jealous. And Dale is just like, what was he like? What did he look like? Like, I'm picturing a redhead. Was it a redhead? Like, so it's pretty adorable little next morning after the party moment where we see, puffed up Hank Hill's chest. We got Bobby in his own homemade Dallas Cowboy shirt, which is adorable and very reminiscent of, like, Bender wanting to be
a globetrotter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another sports team I know. See, I'm not so bad.
Right, we know basketball.
I know of sports. Like crazy.
Right. So, first thing in the morning, and Big Willie is
running up to the boys shirtless, late for work, and goes, "Hey, which one of you Cowboys fans wants to give me a ride to work?" and of course, Hank's like, "You're looking at him."
Yeah. So he's
smitten, in love.
Right, like, the only one who is not, S and the D of Big Little Willie here is Con. Everyone else just still thinks he's great.
Con's the first to catch on and realize that this guy's just using you and he's just a fucking party animal that will make any excuse, whether it's good or bad, and will use you for whatever he can.
And so, as they're driving to work, he's, like, thanking Hank, and he's like, I think I'm still drunk. So good thing which, like, good for him for getting up again that early. Like, in a later scene in this, we see him passed out on a foosball table, and I'm just like, how is this man still alive? Like, I drink once. Like, we will do this podcast, and tomorrow I will be, like, unable to move.
We'll be in bed half the day.
Yeah, and I'm like, and he's just up and at him, like, super early on his way to work.
Well, he half-asses it. That's how he gets through it, right?
He's got that.
He's full of excuses, and of course his excuse when Hank asks him, about the party that went on last night, like, it went a little late, that's, we don't normally do that here, I kind of went easy on you. He goes, oh, sorry, partner, it's just that I can't really drink out in public anymore, because, everyone wants to fight a Dallas Cowboy, so that way I just party at home. That way, if I get in a fight, at least it's with a friend.
Which, like, to the non-smitten viewer is, like, that's brutal. Like, you're okay with fighting your friends?
But also, that's what me and my friends used to do when we were teenagers. Like, get drunk and fight each other for fun sometimes, so I can understand, but it's also, like, that's such a bullshit excuse.
But Hank is like, you see him, like, kind of perk up a bit.
He's, like, very responsible.
That's good.
Good decision. Trying to stay out of trouble. I admire that.
And this is where we also find out that Big Willie's working at Lane Prattley Motors. So he's trying to get Hank into another vehicle. And he's like, could get you a discount. And we see him pull into, like, a Lane Prattley lot. And Hank is unfazed by this, which was a surprise.
Was it Prattley or was it the other competing gas company?
No, it wasn't the Atherton. It was Lane Prattley. But like, still, like, I was just like, Prattley's is a scumbag.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He might as well be Atherton.
Right, and that's not his car guy. Like.
No. Hank's got a guy for everything. So.
And it ain't Prattley. So like Prattley has done some. He's taken part in Tammy, Hank's prostitute.
That's right.
He's tried to pick up Luann before when she was like the teaching.
He repossessed Cotton's car.
Exactly.
Right in the alley.
Prattley's a
Prattley, Cadillac, and Hyundai don't fuck around, basically.
And Big Willie's just the type of guy you'd expect to see.
Yeah, I'm surprised he wasn't a recurring character because he'd probably be right up Prattley's lane.
Oh yeah.
Be his repo guy.
Prattley's lane, I like that. Lane Prattley's lane.
Yeah, he could be just his repo guy, right? Like, go and muscle people out of the cars that owe money to Prattley.
That's right. And also, like, as we learned in Cobra Kai, like, a gimmick helps you sell a car. Right. And so even just having, like, a former Dallas Cowboy, like, selling cars in Texas. And
car salesman / repoman.
Exactly. Just having the name attached. So at the end of the day, though, we see that Big Willie is walking his Rottweiler, which I thought might be Rex, the dog that's featured in the doggy dancing episode, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's a lady. I can't remember her name, but it's a pretty cute little gal. And we see Big Willie is trying to get the dog to poop on Con's yard. And Hank sees this and it's just like, you know, it's not really how we do things around here. And again, super schmoozy. He's like, you know what? I lost my head. It's all good. I forgot my bag. I'm just gonna run home and grab it, and I am not gonna scoop the mess that this dog has made. And then we see Hank is just like looking out the window, and Peggy's now starting to come around to Con's team and is seeing that he's not that great, and is like, how long are you gonna look at that poop for? Like, it's been 2 hours, you know?
Yeah. So Big Willie is basically polluting the alley in every way possible. Mm-hmm. He's at this point in the episode, he has ripped Dale off.
Yep.
He sold him Deion Sanders' car, which presumably is just some old rotted out piece of shit that doesn't even run, and Dale had to push into his driveway after buying. So he's ripped Dale off for a bunch of money. He's teaching Bobby football, but when Bobby demonstrates some of the techniques he's learned from Big Willie, it's nothing more than a sucker punch to the face as somebody's trying to run the ball.
Yeah.
Which is totally illegal. You can't just punch somebody in the face. And does it on Joseph and like knocks him out basically. Mm-hmm. And
he's dug holes in Con's yard at this point.
He's ruined Rainey Street already. And finally Hank is starting to pick up on this and confronts Big Willie. And Big Willie, you know, he's like, oh, you know, sorry partner, I recommend, you know, that we just all bond over this. And he's like, what better way to bond than a bonfire? And starts ripping fence pieces out of Hank's fence. And that's the fence that Hank and Peggy took their wedding photos in front of.
Like, that is a significant fence.
So this is a god-awful. Like, you couldn't have disrespected the man anywhere. No. Like, maybe if you fucked up his lawn.
Yeah.
You might have disrespected him a bit worse.
That is the line that I love, is that, you know, for Hank to go reprimand Big Willie, he sees that he's destroyed Con's lawn, and he comes up behind him, and Con just like sees a shadow and is like scared, like he's actually terrified of the people in the alley at this point, sees that it's Hank, and Hank's like is like, I'm so sorry, Con. A man should never live to see his lawn this way. Like, so seriously, like, this isn't a fence. He's destroying yards, people. Yards.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, and so at this point, Hank's had enough. You know, Big Willie and his buds are crushing beers and making a bonfire in the alley out of Hank's fence. And the cops show up, and they're such big fans that they give Willie the same treatment that Hank and all the other boys did, which is kissing his ass and sucking his D
and
right off
like,
the bat.
All he has to do is tap that ring like on his beer can, and people are like, hey, that's a Super Bowl ring. Like, they don't recognize
You're the guy
him.
that blocked that kick.
Yeah. And
you couldn't have done this.
There's like not a piece of anything that I would recognize like that. You know what I mean? Like, if like for somebody to just tap and I'd be like, oh, hey, you're cool now to me, and I will like totally just, my morals are down the drain because of that thing you're wearing.
Yeah, but in Texas, with a Super Bowl ring or any super sports crazed state, that's probably the way it is, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, that carries a lot.
That's actually a total lie. I feel like if one of my idols was like, I figured out who it was, I'd be like, oh my god, you were in Jurassic Park?
Yeah, that's
destroy
true.
My lawn.
Yeah, and that's another good jumping point to our little in-depth question segments. If you met your idol, how far would you bend like Hank?
Yeah, I think we would, like, we touched on it a bit earlier, you'd ask Hacko Housdy, but like, in all actuality, like, I'm a people pleaser to non-celebrities.
To start
like,
with,
I'm like, I go to like pay and the cashier is nice to me and I'm like, I will do whatever you need me to do. Like, it's just like, if someone gives me a compliment, like, I'll sign over my paycheck to you. Like, so like, we
surrender our will as of this date.
Exactly. I could definitely be part of that cult.
For you Simpsons fans.
Which, if you're a King fan, you probably should be a Simpsons fan.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say, but I really feel like all of my values could be like tried if it was the hands of the right person. So I don't fault anybody in this episode, because I'm like, I
And you know what? That's a really funny response because I'm the opposite of a people pleaser.
Yes,
I don't even I don't even care for people in general. I like about 3 or 4 people.
And cartoon people.
Yeah, most of my idols are fictitious. So, and even still, if I had met one of my real life idols, I feel like I would bend over backwards just as far as
right?
you. Even though I'm the exact opposite, I'd still be like, all right, but I can do. Last time. Come
right?
on, last time I'm bailing you out. Last time?
Like,
please.
the fact that Hank even tries to, like, reprimand him at all is impressive to me. I'm like, wow, you, like, stood up to your idol. Like, the fact that he's like, yeah, I already got a truck. I don't really need a second one when Big Willie's trying to sell him one. I'm like, I would have 2 cars, a buttload of debt. Like, this could ruin my life.
Yeah, so that's how far we would go, which is almost as far as Hank, who is a much more respectable person than us.
Yeah, and has like just the moral compass of like, he's a good dude. I also like when he goes to like before Big Willie is destroying the fence for the bonfire and he's trying to like give him the rules. He's like, Big Willie's like, I thought you were cool, man. And he's like, I can be cool when someone follows our neighborhood guidelines.
within these segmented rules.
And it's like, as much as when I was a kid, I was like, what a square. I'm like, where can I move into that has such a dedicated block cabin or captain? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I want to live on this street where they have these rules, where people aren't noisy after 8:15. Like, get inside, folks. I got to get ready for bed.
Absolutely. And no surprise. I mean, this has pushed everyone to the limit now. Even Hank is on board. He's like, we got to do something. Mm-hmm. So he approaches Con because he realizes that Con was the first to suspect that Big Willie is not the neighbor you'd think he is.
Yeah.
And Con, being a fucking crazy basically psycho, is like, oh, don't worry about it. I already talked to my uncle or somebody last night. He's got a guy that'll do it for $5,000. And Hank's like, no, we're not gonna do that. We have to do we have to abide by state and
federal
municipal law or whatever the equivalent of municipal
all of
is.
them. They want federal, state, and municipal.
I think it's different. It might be different in the states for the lowest level of government.
Yeah, that's
ours is municipal. Yeah, I don't know what theirs is. Community. I don't know.
Either way, they're
Hank's like, no.
Arlen, Texas law.
yeah. Hank's like, no, we can't be doing that. That's insane.
And yeah, so it's things are escalating at this point, and they hatch a plan, and it involves getting up early.
Of course.
we see that it's only Hank and Con right now. The rest of the boys are still under the spell of
they're against him. They're actually chucking water balloons.
Right, they're like, we're drinking with him, and our friendship of 40 plus years is it's over, man. Big Willie. So their plan is pretty clever. They're gonna get up at the, within the confines of the charter. They're gonna get up and start mowing their lawn at 7, which is the earliest that anybody can mow a lawn, which is still pretty fucking early.
It's insanely early for us. If someone was mowing their lawn outside of our fucking window at 7 a.m., we'd consider them Big Willie.
Yes, exactly. I pretty much, I think, as a neighbor, I am the Big Willie because I consider everyone around me Big Willie. I'm like, you're having fun, and it's, slightly in earshot, you Big Willie to me. You're, doing something productive at 7 a.m., Big Willie to me. I'm being noisy and you're not happy with it, you're Big Willie. So, on the flip side of that, we have Boomhauer and Dale and Bill that are cleaning up Big Willie's cans.
His party trash. Yeah. That's what they've been delegated to. They're in his circle, but they're in the bottom end of his circle, cleaning up his trash, getting the refrigerators stolen by his party guests. And,
which they were okay with until Hank's like, come on, guys, this used to be a nice community, and so we see in, a very war cry formation, all 5 motorized lawnmowers are
have assembled and taken their battle positions.
And Hank gives an inspiring speech, which I wish I wrote down to quote because it inspired me.
But long story short, they want to take advantage of Big Willie's beer drinking ways because he's hungover, sleeping off a hangover, as Bill put it. So they start revving their engines, and all this does is provoke Big Willie and his big friends to take the car that Dale has bought that was presumably Deion Sanders, out from underneath their basketball net, which was meant to disrupt their game, and they've literally flipped it nose over ass into Hank's driveway and then onto his lawn, damaging his lawn and the car.
Yeah, which like so now.
Which is not even unbelievable because like 5 or 6 dudes that are 280 pounds or more and athletic could probably do something similar to that. And they do it, and it's broken glass all over the lawn, scraped up, scuffed up lawn. So of course, Hank calls the cops.
Yeah, and same cops as last time that were like dazzled by him. And this time they've brought off-duty police officers who just wanted to meet Big Willie.
And say hi.
Yeah, like so 4 cops show up and it seems like it's going to be like, you're in trouble now, Big Willie. Instead, they're like, Hank, you probably did this yourself. Like, don't blame Big Willie for this car being shattered on your lawn. And he's like, why would I do that? And the cops pull out a Polaroid to take a picture because the on and off duty cops want like evidence of this.
With the guy that blocked that kick. You know what I mean? They're big fan. Everyone in Texas is a big fan of Big Willie.
If there was a drinking game for this episode, it would be anytime someone mentions that he blocked that kick. Yeah. You'd be wasted off your ass.
Or says the name
right now.
Big Willie.
Yes.
Specifically those 2 words.
And so it's like his influence is so powerful that the cop...
He's above the law.
He is, but on top of that, the cop taking a picture has a Polaroid, and Big Willie says to him that he had a camera like that, but it must have gotten lost in the move. So the cop actually gives him the Polaroid camera that he was just using. He's like, you can have this one. Like,
and you can tell that's a move that's worked for Big Willie 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
1,000. He was reaching for it before the officer even offered it.
Yep, and it's just like, no wonder this guy knows like no law and lives this lawless life. Like he just gets everything handed to him literally like a Polaroid camera.
Yeah, so
height of technology back then.
Oh yeah, and still a very functional and desirable piece of technology to people like us right now.
Exactly. I'm like, I want a Polaroid.
Fuck digital. I want a copy of this.
Exactly.
What happens if the grid goes down, as Hank would say in the one episode where he's worried about Y2K.
So the cops drive off, and it is now just the alley boys against...
And Big Willie and his gang of cronies.
His alley boys, Big Willie, and those alley boys.
I know.
And Con, I think... You addressed it, but we both felt it. Con starts really standing up for himself in this like moment. So he is not having that Big Willie was against the law, and he goes over to like confront him, which like for a little dude and like...
Yeah, you gotta think Con's probably what, 5, maybe 5'9"?
Yeah.
About my height?
Yeah.
And he's probably about 145, 150 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
And is about 40.
Yeah.
And is not an athlete of any kind that we know. Although he does have abs and he's fairly fit in the later seasons. So maybe he is, maybe I'm not giving him as much credit as I should. He's fit,
but not an athlete.
Yeah, and he probably knows all those Oriental martial arts, as Hank says to Bobby in the Wasana Song episode where Bobby gets beat up. So he may know how to fight, but he's a physical mismatch for Big Willie. But at this point, he doesn't give a fuck. He's ready to go kamikaze and destroy himself just to take a nick out of Big Willie.
That's right.
And he goes after him, and he's like, I don't fucking care what you did. I don't care if you blocked that kick. I don't even know what it means to block a kick. But if you can do it, any idiot can fucking block a kick. And Big Willie basically, tries to go after him. And the only thing that saves Con is Hank stepping up to the plate and getting in between the two.
Which is another. So, Hank is a former athlete.
A former state caliber athlete. And
he's still no match for Big Willie. And he gets in the middle of them, So it's like these, alley boys got some fucking cojones.
So, yeah. And you got to think, Hank's a tough motherfucker. He had a freak injury that ruined his athletic career. But with his determination and his discipline and responsibility, he probably could have been in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? If his ankle didn't get completely destroyed in a state championship game, he would have been on the Dallas Cowboys probably with Big Willie Lane around that same timeline. So Hank's, you know what I mean? He knows this. He knows he's a bad motherfucker, and he steps up in between Con Even though Big Willie Lane's like 6'4", 300.
Right? And so there's a moment of pause where Hank gets through to him and he's like, you know, he says, we don't do this, like we don't fight on the alley. And Big Willie looks like he's about to take a step back and, you know, stand down as he has in every other situation in this episode. But instead winds up and fucking clocks Hank
Cold
square
clocks him with a
like,
big left hook.
Right in the middle of the cheek.
Right in the cheekbone. And Hank gets his head knocked back, but he just snaps right back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't even get wobbled. Doesn't get taken off his feet. And it's just irritated about it.
And, like, Dale steps in and is like, kick his ass, Hank. Like, as if he, you know.
Yeah, kill him. I believe he says, go ahead and kill him, Hank. We'll see. You know what I mean? We got your back.
And Hank, even in this moment, like, he is the most admirably, like, level person I know. Doesn't lose his head. And is like, no, right now, it's assault. But if I fight him, it's a fight.
It's a fight. That's right. And I love that. First of all, Hank takes, like, an ungodly punch from this huge muscle-bound giant, basically, and not only doesn't get wobbled or shook at all, has the wherewithal to be like, no, I'm gonna figure out a clever hill-esque way to get out of this. You know what I mean? Because those hills, they can get out of anything. We've touched on this before. We will again. It may not have been audible to you because we may not have posted it, but those hills can weasel their way out of anything.
They get away, like, just to list a few, exploding a car dealership.
Yeah, causing like maybe $200,000 in damage.
Yep, and they get away from that. Kidnapping a child from another country.
Yeah.
And they get away with that. Like, there's just, like, so many times that they...
Ripping off a dangerous pyramid scheme. Yep. Faking their own deaths.
Yep. Like...
an endless amount of stuff, like burning an American flag.
Yeah, like and it's just like every time, like publishing a mustard gas recipe in a newspaper.
Yeah.
Like they just are always in and out of trouble, and just like
But nothing.
Burning down a church.
Yeah, burning down a whole church. Like, oh my God, nothing sticks to those hills. They're like Italian mafia men. Like, everyone knows they're doing this shit, whether it's intentionally or not. But nothing sticks to them.
Yeah.
They're like,
sorry. I feel like we need to keep going. But crack.
Hank buying and using Bobby for fishing.
Making meth.
Bobby making meth, that's right. Hank buying crack and using it.
And getting caught.
Not ingesting it, but using it for fishing. And then Bobby making it inadvertently without even knowing, but still making it.
And bringing it to school.
Hank being suspected of murdering Debbie Grundle.
Yes, they are just
an endless amount of horribly dramatic legal consequences and crimes. Like it's unbelievable what hasn't stuck to these hills.
Like conspiracy to shoot Castro.
It never fucking ends with these hills.
And so even in this moment where I'm sure he could get into a scrap,
a brawl, or
still get away with it.
Exactly.
He still finds out a very clever Hank Hill.
Yeah, after getting sucker punched by a giant, he still has the wherewithal to be like, no, this is this is right now. It's assault. If we fight back, it's a fight, and nobody gets any kind of legal representation or advantage. And
Bill is the first to notice that when he did get sucker punched, there's now like an indent on Hank's cheek.
From that Super Bowl ring, which is even more impressive. Like, Hank got punched with a left hook from a giant with a studded ring.
Like,
right
it's
on
so
the
hard
cheekbone.
To leave an impression, a visible impression.
An immediate visible impression.
Yes, and I just want to say, I gave myself a hematoma this summer walking into a trailer hitch, and it nearly you were there and everybody was making fun of me because I was like, I can't walk, and it has left a dent in my muscle, and that fucking hurt. I was not able to stand.
They were like, why are you limping? For all you Office fans.
And so I just am like, that has got to be, and I got an immediate bruise, I crushed my fucking muscle. And so for Hank to be standing after this and just, you know what I mean, not being shook at all.
Bad motherfucker. Mm-hmm. He may be a nice, straight edge dude, but really,
bad motherfucker.
he's got a lot more of that Cotton Hill in him than he knows.
Yep, absolutely. So using the Polaroid camera, the Big Willie just commandeered from the cops, they end up taking a picture as proof. And there's like a very cool football move that they do where like Boomhauer goes in, gets the camera, throws it over to Con, who snaps the pic, passes it off to Hank, who gives it to Dale, who uses the squirrel move.
Yeah, it's Dale's squirrel tactics.
Yeah.
Which is basically him just panicking, scurrying, jumping over a fence, and then getting into his house where he pulls a secret latch that slams down a steel gated lock over his window so the bad guy can't get in. And now has the Polaroid as evidence safely locked away in his home.
So we find out that Big Willie can't afford another assault charge.
Yeah.
And they give him 2 weeks to move out, which we were like, it was funny because Pank was like, that is a very generous amount. And I was like, only 2 weeks? Like, he has to find a house and sell it in 2 weeks? But that is how it kind of caps.
But then I was like, dude, he just assaulted him, corrupted his boy's mind, teaching him basically assault as well. Ripped off Dale, selling him Deion Sanders' car.
Destroyed 2 houses worth of property as well as stealing Bill's fridge.
Yeah.
So it's like he
intimidated Con, cutting his phone cord when he was trying to call for help.
Absolutely.
And now he's got 2 weeks notice to get out?
All I can say is thank God Luann wasn't in this episode. I would hate to see what he would have done to her.
Oh my God, yeah, 'cause she's dumb enough and...
Exactly, and Neighbors. So that about wraps it up. Now, we always like to cap off the episode with a rating and favorite moments, and it's never pre-thought, so we're sorry if there's any awkward silences.
Or if it's not our truly
Yeah.
favorite moment.
Yes, but
we're on the fly type people here. We got a phone stuck into a mutilated Scrabble board so that it can be upright and film Alamo T-shirt that we bought that's wrapped around a battleship game.
No, it's Jurassic Park board game.
Right, even better. So we're as Bush League as it gets.
We're anti-Hill.
Yeah, we're ready to start like a 90s like cult where you can only be using technology from the 90s.
Yeah. And if we had a Hank in our life, this would be a much flashier production.
Much more professional.
You're getting ours. But so what were your rating and final thoughts?
Rating, final thoughts, and favorite moment would be... I'd rate this one fairly high, probably about a 9.2.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Little that's lacking. I would have liked a bit of a B story. That's the only criticism, though. Yeah. And not even a big B story, just a little one. Little Peggy doing something crazy.
Right.
You know, a little bit of Bobby, struggling with something. Would have made it a 9.9 or a 10. But overall, incredibly good, incredibly funny. We couldn't even take enough notes. It was so good.
No, and that's why this was our first hour-long episode. Because we were like, it's so dense.
Yeah, and favorite moment is probably when Hank takes that devastating studded punch from a 300-pound, 6'3" football player. Tough son of a bitch. As a martial artist and a combat sports fan, I really respect that.
I feel like that's fair.
What would yours be?
I agree on the 9.2. I think it's like a nearly perfect episode, but like even as someone who's not a sports fan in any way, like I'm still enthralled in the episode, and totally appreciate how funny and dense it is. My favorite moment, as usual, is a Peggy one. So when she thinks that he looked to the stands and saw Peggy 20 plus years ago and recognized her all these years later, this man, as you can see with his bar sluts and stuff, he has had,
he's seen a million tits.
So and just the fact that she thinks no, I stuck out to him, and doesn't realize that he's just being charming and schmoozy is my favorite moment. I'm a Peggy advocate all the way. So.
That makes sense. And honestly, if Hank wouldn't have taken that amazing punch, that would have been my favorite moment as well. So I can advocate that is a shining moment to remember in this episode.
Most people would be like, oh, you think I'm a cheerleader too? And she's like, well, I wasn't a cheerleader, but you probably recognized me from the stands 20 plus years ago.
Yeah. So
thank you so much for joining us in the alley. We hope that you enjoyed and that you'll join us next time, and feel free to crack a beer.
Yeah, let's shoot the shit soon.